Hey, welcome back. So one of the things that has occurred to me recently is almost every single chat interface with an AI looks something like this. It is pretty much a ChatGPT style interface, looks very professional, but everything is kind of looking the same. And I thought, as we enter this new world of AI agents, why do we need to have this ChatGPT style interface? So in this video, we're going to go super retro and we're going to build ourselves a chat interface that looks a little bit more like this. And it's fabulously retro. You can even hear the amazing boo 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 boo. And I started to think of the old retro games from the 80s and 90s with these really cheesy graphics and weird sound systems which were awesome. And I was like, why can't we have AI agents like this? And it's so bad it's good. Did you notice that the way the mouth was animating and the robot boo 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 noise? It's amazing. And the way that I created that demo was to take this library called Pyxel, which is like a retro gaming engine which has access to 16 colors, it's got sound, it's absolutely incredible and easy to program against, and it's like going back to the 80s and 90s, which allows you to make these sort of pixel art style games with full animations. And then what I did there is I hooked it up to Ollama, which of course is the open source Docker of AI models, and then we hooked the two things together so that the fabulous animations with the sounds was able to talk to the AI in the back end, and it was all running on my local machine. Now the cool thing about Pyxel is not only can you run it on your machine, but you can run it using WebAssembly, WASM, so you can run it in the browser as well. So in this video, I'm going to show you how you can get started with Pyxel, and I'm going to show you how to hook up that exact same demo that we did. So at the end of it, you'll be able to create your own fabulous retro gaming AI agents. Now, I'm sure you've never heard of Pyxel before, but if you want to go and check it out, it's got some really good tutorials in there. It's created by a guy called Takashi Kitao. It's available at github.com/Kitao/Pyxel. Pyxel with a Y, Pyxel. I'll put that in the notes. So if we have a look at some of the examples that are available in the Pyxel gallery, you can see there's cool games such as chess, or there's old style shoot 'em ups, there's Pac-Man style games, or even there's the old classic Lord Runner in there. So actually, I'm just going to click on that for a second and we can see the game playing. Isn't that absolutely fabulous? Do you hear the amazing sounds that are coming from that? It is like a total sort of flashback to the past where you can play those old style retro games, and the music just sounds amazing. But for me, the fun thing is to hook it up to the AI and reproduce that demo. And I think people could create amazing style games as well, right? The reproduction of Monkey Island, for example, but being powered by an AI. So there's a few things to do to get started on this. I'm going to do this on my Mac. Obviously, there's some instructions on Takashi Kitao's GitHub there. But the first thing you need to do is you will need to have something like pipx install. So I will just do a brew install of that because I want the ability to run the games that I create or the AI agents in a sandbox environment. And therefore, I'm also going to have to install ensure path as well, which makes sure that pipx is correctly on my path. Once that's done, I can do a pipx install pyxel. I would also recommend just doing a regular pip install pyxel if you can as well, and that means it's going to make things a little bit easier in your VS Code environment. So now that we've got everything installed, you can just restart, and then you will have access to the pyxel command there. And then all I need to do is if I want to run an application, I can just do pyxel run, put my Python script file in there. But if I have done a pip install, then I can just do Python and then put the name in there. As you can see, the pyxel command is pretty cool because it got you the ability to kind of watch your script, or you can convert it into an executable or to HTML. So in the case of where you want to export it as WASM and run it on a browser like we showed with the Load Runner game, then you would be able to do pyxel app to HTML to do that. Now to get started, we'll just create ourselves a new directory. We'll call it pyxel record because I'm just going to record this. We'll go into pyxel record. We're going to do a hello world, so I'm just going to create a file called hello.py. We'll open that up in Visual Studio Code. And then of course, the first thing I'm going to need to do is I'm going to have to import Pyxel. I've obviously got it installed. Now, to make things a little bit easier, one of the recommendations from Pyxel is to actually put things into a class. So I'm going to create an app class, and then in that I am going to need a constructor. So I'll have my init here. And then what I will do is I will just set everything that I need within my init. So the first thing I need to do is set the window size and title. So to do that, I am just going to do a pyxel.init. And then I'm going to set my height of my, the width of my window to 160, and I'm going to set the width to 120, and then I'm just going to give it a title. So we will say hello world. In that sense, it is a hello world application in the first place. And then the other thing that we need to do, because it's a game engine, we need to be able to handle frame updates, and we need to handle screen draws as well. And that's sort of the heart of the game loop. So to do that, we are just going to do pyxel run. So that gets our game loop up and running and starting. And then I'm just going to say, I'm going to call my update method, which we'll create in a second, which will handle any frame updates. And then for handling the draw of the screen, I'm going to have a method called self.draw, and that will handle that for us. So now that I've done that, I need to create myself my update method. So in this case, what we are going to do is, if somebody presses the Q key, then I am just going to quit out of this. So to do that, I just do an if pyxel, and then there is a nice little thing called button P, BTNP, which is looking for a button press. So all I need to then do here is just look for pyxel dot key Q in this case. Very cool, right? So it's just looking for the Q key being pressed there. Really easy to check for a button press. And then all I want to do is call pyxel dot quit. And that is the update. So basically, every time there is a frame update, then what's going to happen there is if there's a button press, a Q, then I'm just going to quit out. And by the way, this is the same technique that we will use later on in the chat application to be able to check for keyboard presses as we're typing into the chat window. So now that I've got my update here, I need to do my screen draw. So I'm going to have another method, and this time it's going to be called draw. And then what I need to do is clear the screen. So to clear the screen, I'm just going to do a pyxel.cls. So every time I draw the screen, I'm just going to clear it every single time. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw something that says hello world, and I'm going to put that on the screen. We'll do a pyxel.text, and then I'll just put it maybe somewhere in the middle of the screen. So I'm going to put it position X and Y, which is 60, 60. And then I'm just going to put in hello world as my text. And then for a little bit of fun, what we are going to do now is I just want to change the color of the text as we go along. So you can kind of see here, there's a little color thing. I can put whatever color in there, but I want to give it that kind of flashing effect. So what I will do here is I'm just going to grab the frame count, and then I'm going to take the modulo of that by 16, and therefore I'm always going to just be rotating through the numbers up to 16 there. Now that I've got my draw, last thing that I need to do is just get my application started. So we will just check for main, and we will call our application. So if I hit save here, we can clear this. I can do a pyxel run hello, and there we go, hello world, flashing away. And as you can see, it's sort of rotating through the colors that we've got. It's roughly in a position 60, 60, and you can see hello world there. So that is the sort of simplest hello world that you can possibly imagine. And if I press the Q button, you can see it's absolutely doing nothing. So if I come back into my code, and I've made a complete mess of this code. So rather than it being button, I need that to be button P, and then obviously I need to have my brackets for my quit. So let's just run this one more time. And now it's flashing as before, but if I press Q, then it quits the window. Don't you love this library though? How easy is that to create these sort of old style applications? I am just in love with this. So next thing that we will do then is I want to add a little bit of animation to this hello world, and I really just want us to get familiar with the library, and then we'll move on to a nice little chat window as we saw a little bit later. So next thing that I am going to do is I'm going to add in the text position so that I can animate it a little bit later. So we'll create some properties here. So I'll have self.textx, and I'm going to set that to, let's start that at 10, and self.text y, and we'll set that to 80. So we'll have self.dx equals 1, and we'll have self.dy equals 1 as well. And those x and y is what we are going to essentially use to sort of animate hello world to move around the screen. We're just going to move it one position at a time from the X and the Y. So as you can imagine there, then what I want to be able to do is, since I'm going to be moving this around, I'm just going to add one each time. So I'm going to just do self.text X is plus equal to self.dx, and then I'm going to do the same for Y here. So all I am doing is every time we update the frame, then we are adding essentially this value dx and dy there, and that's going to create that animation. So what I want to be able to do now is just make sure that if it hits any of the edges, then it's going to bounce off of the screen. So I'm just going to do a check here to check if the x is less than 0 or if the x is greater than or equal to 160 minus 50, and if it is, then rather than adding, I'm going to minus, so I'm just going to send it off in a different direction. So we'll say self.dx is equal to minus self.dx. And then as you can imagine, I'm going to do something similar for the y coordinate. So now that we've done that, I just need to change this pixel.text rather than it saying 60. I obviously want to be using our text x and our text y value. Now if we rerun our application, we should now see an animated hello world dashing through the screen. This is just so cool. I can make it full screen and it's just going to bounce around there. Very, very cool. Don't you just love the absolute retro awesomeness of this? Of course, you know, we should have some music on this as well. Let's add some music, and then I promise you we will get onto the chat interface. Alrighty, to get some music, I'm going to create a new file, and this time I'm going to create something called background music .py. We will import pyxel in this case, and it's just going to make some stupid tune, which is going to be awesome. We'll create a nice little function, as you can imagine, called start background music. And in this case, to access the music library, we just need to call pyxel.sound. And I want it to happen on sound channel 0. I have access to multiple channels, but I think you have up to 8 channels on this, but I'm just going to use channel 0 for just now. And then you can kind of see here that it's listening for notes, tones, volumes, effects, and speed. So you have a lot of control over this. I am terrible at this, so I am just going to put some notes in here that I've sort of pre-prepared earlier. If you are musically minded, you are going to be able to create much better notes than I can, but we will just put some in so we can have a cool sounding tune. So it's pretty easy to create things. If you want to layer, you can just add more sounds and you can kind of put a different channel on there, so you can start to layer your tune. If you want to have a kind of melody, if you want to have some chords, if you want to have some drums, whatever you want to do, you're able to do that there. The last thing I need to do is I just need to play this. I'll do pyxel.play. I'm going to kick off channel 0, which is the one that we've just set over here for the sound. And then I'm just going to have that loop there as well. So now that we're up and running here, I just need to come back into my hello. And now all I need to do on start here, as you can imagine, is I just need to call start background music, and then we just need to import that from background music. If I now do this, come back into our nice little application, run it one more time, and we should have some funky music coming. Nice, huh? Not quite the style of LoadRunner, but it's pretty cool retro music. So we've now got text on the screen, we've got keyboard inputs, we've got animation, we've got music. We can now start to build our chat interface. Now, rather than you watching me type a very long chat interface, I am actually just going to paste this in for a second. Okay, so before I explain the code, I'm just going to show you what the interface looks like for a second. So we created something called simple chat there. So let's just run it, Python simple chat. We'll move that there. You see at the bottom, we've got the little cursor there. And if I type hello world, again, very simple. Remember that button press that we were doing earlier, you know, for the Q for quit. Now I'm just typing that into my little text area there. And then when I hit return, you see it's the user avatar there says hello world, and then the kind of assistant avatar is coming back with hello, how can I assist you today? Now I haven't hooked up the LLM or anything at this point. I'm just doing a simple hello world and then repeating whatever comes in. It's only ever going to say hello, how can I assist you today? So if I go tell me a joke, it's just going to say hello, how can I assist you today, right? So this is a more traditional is retro, right? But this is a more traditional sort of chat interface, but it's a lot more fun, right? But now, if I just walk through the code, and then what we'll do is hook up the LLM to this, and then we'll get to the funky avatar a little bit later. So let's just come back into VS Code. So as you see here, I've got my title, which in this case is AI Chat Experience. I've got this little self.messages where I'm storing the chat history. Input text is just where I'm typing, so it's whatever I typed in there, and then it captures whether I'm typing or not. And then it's the same update and draw loop that we had before. As you can see, if I'm in typing mode, I'm handling the input, so I'm just going to call this method down here. We'll talk about that in a second. And then, of course, if the button press happens, it's going to call process user input. So it's always looking for this button press. And if that button press happens, then it's going to put that up onto the screen. Handle input. The interesting way that Pyxel works is exactly what we showed a little bit earlier with the Q key. It's just looking for keys in the range of A to Z. So it only allows me to type in alphabetic letters there. It's checking for a backspace. So in this case, if I type in the backspace key, it's going to remove the previous letter that I typed in. And then it's allowing me to accept spaces in as well. It's just the same as I showed you before. And then in this one, process user input. So if the return key happens in the frame update, then it's just going to take that input text, it's going to strip out the characters there, and then it's going to add that message. So remember, add message here, self-messages.append, and it's going to add that into that self.messages that we created earlier. And then this is our LLM placeholder response. So this is where we're going to hook it up to Ollama in a second. And then you can see there, hello, how can I assist you today? And then we add the message in there, it sets it in typing mode. And then finally, the last thing here is I've got this draw avatar and draw message. So draw message is being called. You see here, we've got self.draw. If I go down into draw, then it's clearing the screen exactly as we did before. It's doing some calculations for the bubbles, etc. It's reversing the messages, but you can kind of see here it's going to draw this input box at the bottom, but more importantly, it's going to call draw message for drawing the message on the screen. And then the message is just going to give different colors, etc. It's going to call this draw avatar, so that's going to be my user message, and then it's going to do the same for assistant. And then it's literally going to calculate some size of bubbles, etc. Draw each line of text using the same sort of pixel text commands, and then doing some things like rectangles. It's fairly simple. It's pretty much everything that I showed you. There's nothing new in there that I didn't show you, apart from the rectangle that we didn't create before, right? It is just using text, it's using some colors, some animation, etc., and then some key presses to work. So that is our very, very cool, simple chat interface, retro style, love it. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hook it up to Ollama. So I'm going to create a new Python call called llmhandler.py. I'm not going to use any of the inbuilt Ollama libraries because, you know, I want this to be able to work with native Python. So I want the Pyxel run to work. So if I use things like the Ollama libraries or Llama index or whatever, then I'm probably going to be varying away from being able to use that in Wasm later, even using WASI standards. And it's certainly using the Pyxel run won't work because it's got a cut down set of libraries. So what I've done here is I've limited to HTTP client. I will show you a little bit about this. If you haven't used Ollama before, Ollama is very, very cool. It's kind of like the Docker of large language models, and you can run things on your machine. If you click on models here, for example, it shows you all the available models that you can run. So Llama 2, Llama 3.2, Llama 3.1, the Gemma models, etc. So you can just pick whatever models and then you can run it in your machine. I do have a video on that. You can check that out if you want. I've obviously pre-installed Ollama on my machine, and if I want to interact with Ollama, I can literally, once I've got it installed, I can do a Llama list that tells me which models I've got running. So in this case, you can see Llama 3.1. So if I do Ollama run Llama 3.1, and then I can say something like hello world, or we could just say hello, and then it says hello, how can I assist you? I will say tell me a joke. This is all running on my machine, and then it's going to come back and tell me a terrible joke about Pavlov's dog. So that's me interacting with the model. The cool thing about Ollama is it actually has a a web server. So you see Ollama serve there. It's actually running a web server on the machine as well, and it's basically a fast API server. But that means that in this case, I can then call that web server just using HTTP client. So if we look here today, all I'm doing is I'm going to set a nice little system prompt. Your concise and informative assistant. Keep responses to a few sentences, very short, no new lines. I've got my conversation history here, and then I've got this function here called stream LLM response, where I'm going to pass in my prompt, right? For some reason, I called that natural query. It's basically a prompt. At the beginning, I'm going to add the system prompt if it's the first query. I could set that as the real system prompt if I want, but I was being super lazy in this case because I'm just using HTTP clients. But conversation history, and then here, as you can see, I'm calling localhost 11434, and that's the port that Ollama runs on. I'm creating my JSON here, model llama 31. There's my prompt. I'm going to set stream into true. I set my headers to return JSON, and then I'm calling API generate, which is the endpoint that Ollama serves up there. And then all I'm going to do is I'm going to get the response by calling get response, and then I'm going to process each line that comes back, do a bit of decoding and parsing, and then I'm going to yield it back to give the kind of streaming piece there. That is literally it. I'm going to close it off, and then we're good. So here, you can see here, I've got if name equals main, and then I'm going to say what is 25 squared. So actually, if I just run this for a second, and we run Python LLM handler, you can see it's came back with 625. So I have called Ollama, which is running on my machine, and it's came back with the answer. So we know that works. So then all I technically need to do is go and modify the add LLM response here. So here where I'm saying response, how can I assist you today? Then what I should be doing is calling stream LLM response. So to do that, let's just get rid of this for a second. We're going to set this to just some quote marks to make it empty. And then I'm just going to say response stream is going to be equal to stream LLM response. The squiggly should come up. I'm going to add from my response handler there. And now I just need to call self.messages. And then I'm going to take the last message that came in. I'm going to be super lazy rather than passing in the whole conversation history. I'm just going to pass in the last user message as an input here. So now that I've got my response stream, I can just do a for chunk in response stream. Remember, I'm yielding out my responses, and then we will say response is equal to chunk. So we're just adding that on. So responses plus equals chunk, and then add message. I can just pass in response as I did before, and everything remains the same. So now if I save that, and we were to rerun simple chat, and now if I type in something like hello, you can see, hello, how can I help you? And I'll say, tell me a joke. Why couldn't the bicycle stand up for itself? Because it was too tired. It was too tired. But the key thing is here is my new funky chat interface, chatting with Llama 3.1 using Ollama. Isn't this cool? Isn't this great? Isn't this so much better than kind of the corporate style ChatGPT style interfaces? And again, I just think we can experiment more with how we interact with LLMs. As I said, I think something like a retro game style Monkey Island type interface could be really cool. If you wanted to, you could just take that application and then using the pyxel upto HTML, you could distribute that onto the internet today using WASM, and that would be super fun. So we don't need to have these corporate interfaces. We can have these really cool retro style things. But I said we were going to do a terrible animation with some terrible voices. So let's kind of move on to that and change that interface. So to make that work, we're going to create ourselves a new class. So we'll have a new file called assistantavatar.py. And in here, we are just going to create this huge avatar. We're going to encapsulate it all so it's just sits on its own. Again, nothing new that you haven't seen here. So I'm just going to initialize this. So if it's talking, We will know that. So whenever the avatar talks, it's going to play some sound, very similar to what we said before. I'm going to mess around with some font dimensions. I wouldn't worry too much about that. We're going to create some fixed size there. I'm going to have a method called start talking. So whenever we type something in and we get a response back, it will start talking. So it'll play the animation. And then I'm going to have another one that says whether it's stop talking, right? And then obviously, last one here is update talking. So if it's talking there, it's going to play the sound. It will control the speed, etc. And then this one here, draw avatar, is going to draw the big kind of face that you saw with the mouth. This bit here is going to animate the mouse in the middle. So whenever we're talking, it will do that. And then the speech bubble, remember the speech, this here is just going to sort of type out the text as we go along, and it's going to handle the wrapping. But again, it's just all rectangles and all that sort of thing. And then this here sort of handles the wrapping. So it's got that sort of type effect there. Again, I'm not going to go into the code here because you don't really want to sit and watch me type all of that code. So now all I need to do is sort of bring my new avatar into this. So within my constructor, I'm just going to self.avatar is equal to assistant avatar. And then we will just add the class in here. So I'll just say quick fix. We'll add from there. So I've now initialized that within the update. Within the update now, I just need to sort of update the talking status of the avatar. So every frame, we just need to work out whether the avatar is talking or not. And then we can sort of play that animation as we go along there. Then obviously the other thing that I need to do is that once I've got the response back from the LLM, I need to tell the avatar to start talking as well, passing in the response from the LLM to that so it can display that in the speech bubble. Now, obviously I don't need this draw avatar method anymore because I'm going to be handling that within my new assistant avatar piece. And then obviously the draw message part isn't required either because that's handled in my assistant avatar with the speech bubble, so we can get rid of that as well. And then we can get rid of all of this stuff here as well. We can keep the clear screen, and we obviously still want to draw the input box at the bottom, but the last thing we want to now do is call the draw avatar from my assistant class. All right, now that we've got everything in place, we've hooked up the avatar, I've got my chunking here, I put a little bit of a sleep in here just so that we can match the kind of animation to as we get the chunking coming through. I've added my message there. So my interface should be ready. And now if I just clear my screen for a second and then we run simple chat one more time, we can see the magical face there. And now if we type in hello, and we can ask it to tell me a joke. And again, isn't it fabulous? The animated face there, the sounds coming through. And then we've got the amazing bicycle joke. And again, this is a true interaction between the Pyxel library and Ollama 3.1 via Ollama. So I think you are going to be able to create much, much better experiences than I have. But Pyxel is just a great library. You can do some amazing sounds. If you remember the Load Runner sound that I played at the beginning, that was some proper retro great game music. So if you are fantastic at game music, you are going to be able to do amazing things. If you're great at animation, you're going to be able to do much better than my stupid kind of picture there. You can bring in true images. You can do tile maps. You can create entire games, amazing animations, etc. The reason I do this video is I think that Pyxel is a great library and I think you should experiment with that. But I really do think that the experiences that we have with AI need to go beyond the simple chat interfaces. I think that we are going to want to have different ways of interacting, especially with AI agents, rather than necessarily always a chat interface. And you can imagine sounds coming back and forward. You could have AI agents Morse coding with each other. You can have different animations, or as I said, that sort of Monkey Island style game. You could even give it access to things like the canvas, so you could chat with it and then it will be able to draw pictures, etc. I think we need to push beyond just working with typical chat interfaces. I think kind of the sort of old retro game style is really an interesting way forward. And I'm hoping folks will go and experiment, and maybe we'll start to see more of these types of interfaces as opposed to the sort of typical chat interfaces that we're seeing today. Anyway, I hope this video is useful. Go check out Pyxel. It's a great library. Go have some fun and be creative and try and do something different. And let's have our AI agents be expressive and have different pictures and faces and be able to talk in different ways, as we've kind of shown that today. Maybe combine it with things like WebSockets and stuff like that so that you can have this sort of entire agent network. Anyway, I hope this video has been useful, and I'll catch you on the next one.